All right, today we're going to open up the toolkit for one of the most important jobs out there, the manager. And look, let's forget about the job titles and the corner offices for a second. We're going to treat management like a craft, a skill, a set of tools that really anyone can learn to use. So let's get into it.
So let's start with the big question. What does a manager actually do? And if your first thought is go to meetings or answer a million emails, well, you're not wrong, but that's barely scratching the surface. The real work is so much deeper. I want you to think of a manager less like a boss and more like a builder. Someone who's got a specific set of tools to build something that really works, something that can last.
And just like any good builder, it doesn't matter if they're putting up a skyscraper or a single-family home, they always start with the same core set of tools. It's the same for managers. I don't care if you're leading a tiny tech startup or a massive global company. The fundamental job, it's surprisingly universal.
And that brings us to the first set of tools in the kit, what you could call the Universal Language of Management, POLC. That stands for planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Now, this is not just some simple to-do list. It's a cycle, a loop that's always running, and it pretty much guides every single decision a manager has to make. You could even say it's the engine of management itself.
Let's break that down real quick. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with planning. That's setting the destination. Where are we trying to go? Then you've got organizing. This is where you draw the map to get there. Who's doing what? What resources do we have? Next up is leading, and this is the fuel for the journey. It's all about motivating the team, influencing them to get moving, and to keep pushing forward. And finally, there's controlling. Think of this as constantly checking the GPS. Are we still on the right path? If we're not, we need to make a correction. And guess what? That correction feeds right back into a new plan. It's this powerful, non-stop loop.
Okay, so once a manager gets those core functions down, they use them to create the organizational blueprint. This is literally about building the skeleton of the company, the structure that gives it its shape and, allows it to stand up and function in the first place.
And that blueprint is built by establishing different levels of management. This is the system that decides how work gets done, how critical information moves around, and ultimately, who gets to make the final call on things. Honestly, without this kind of structure, an organization isn't really an organization, it's just chaos.
The easiest way to picture it is like a pyramid. Way up at the top, you've got your top-level managers, your CEOs, who are setting the huge long-term vision. They're focused on the what and the why. Then in the middle, you have your department heads, and their job is to translate that big vision into actual concrete plans, the how. And down at the base, you have your first-line supervisors, who are right there in the day-to-day, making sure the work actually gets done. And this creates this vital two-way street. Big decisions flow down, but just as importantly, feedback from the ground level has to flow back up.
But let's be real. A blueprint, a structure, it's just a drawing on a piece of paper. To bring it to life, you need an engine. And in any company, that engine is its people. Figuring out how to power that engine, well, that turned out to be one of the biggest revolutions in the entire history of management.
See, for a really long time, the old school approach to management basically saw workers as cogs in a giant machine. The whole focus was on efficiency, on rules, on structure. The thinking was, if you can just optimize the process, you can optimize the person. But that point of view was missing something huge. And this was the turning point. Back in the 1920s, the famous Hawthorne studies were just trying to test things like, does better lighting make people work harder? But the researchers stumbled onto something incredible. Productivity wasn't going up because the lights were brighter, it was going up simply because the workers were being paid attention to. For the first time, they actually felt seen, they felt valued, like they were part of a team.
This was a massive aha moment for the entire field. It proved that the human stuff, motivation, a sense of belonging, good leadership, it wasn't some soft distraction from the real work. It was central to the work. And just like that, managers had a whole new set of tools in their kit, people tools. Now they could add a powerful human engine to their structural blueprint.
So here we are. Our manager has a solid blueprint and a high-powered engine. But the real world isn't some perfectly paved straight highway, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, things are always changing. So the final, and maybe the most advanced set of tools, is all about how to navigate that messy reality.
Which brings us to a question that managers have been wrestling with for decades. After all this, with everything we know, what is the single best, most perfect way to design and structure a company? Well, the answer, it might surprise you.
The answer is, there isn't one. The big secret is that there is no single best way.
A master manager knows it's about pulling the right tool out for the right job. So if you're in a super stable environment, like a classic factory, a rigid, rule-based, mechanistic structure is perfect. But if you're in a chaotic, fast-changing startup, you absolutely need a flexible, collaborative, organic structure just to survive.
And that's the whole point right there. The best design, the best structure is always contingent on the situation. The industry, the technology, the size of the company, it all matters. This is the core idea behind what's called contingency theory. You can think of it as the ultimate tool in the kit, because it's the one that tells you which of the other tools you should be using. In this world, adaptability isn't just a nice skill to have, it's the entire strategy.
So, let's step back and see what we've built. When you put all of these pieces together, the core functions, the structural blueprint, that human engine, and the navigation system for adapting, you finally get the complete toolkit for the modern manager.
And here it is, all laid out. You've got the blueprint for structure and order, you've got the engine for motivation and drive, and you've got the navigation system that lets you adapt both of those things to whatever the world decides to throw at you. It's a really powerful integrated system when you think about it.
And that right there is really the big takeaway from all of this. Great management isn't about just being a master of the rules or only being a master of motivation. It's about being a master craftsman, someone who knows exactly how to combine all of these tools to build an organization that is both efficient and human, both stable and adaptable.
But as we look ahead, there's one last question that kind of looms over everything. In a world that's going to be dominated by AI and automation, where machines can plan, organize, and even control better than any human ever could, what becomes the most essential tool left in the manager's kit? Will it be those uniquely human skills like leadership and motivation, or is it something entirely new that we haven't even discovered yet?